Welcome back to Happy Little Knits. I am Chanel Shea, and today we're doing a Q&A. This is what I'm going to be working on today. This is my very first Q&A. I have a few questions about, they're all knitting related really, but I thought I would just jump on here and answer some of them. Get comfortable and grab a snack or a drink or some knitting or crochet, and let's just hang out and talk all things knitting. Today I am working on my very first Petite Knit pattern. It is the Mélange sweater, I think is what it's called. And so far I just have I'm just working on the back. This is all I have so far. I started this like I want to say 3 days ago. So we've made some progress for only being 3 days. Well, actually quite a bit of progress for only being 3 days, but this is what I'm going to work on today. That's my cat. We are currently sitting in my daughter's playpen because she wanted some attention. So we're going to sit and hang out. We're trying to get her on a nap time schedule. So if she's getting a little cranky, I apologize in advance. Just bear with us because it's something new. Also, her toy box is right here, so she's gonna be playing with some toys that make noise. Let's get into it. I wrote the questions down because I'm filming on my phone, so I can't look at them on my phone. But I wrote them down. So, what do you suggest to make knitting more fun? That's a good question. To make knitting more fun, I would say do something that is gonna be entertaining to you. Pick something that is maybe, I don't know, because everyone's different. For me personally, what I like to do is stuff that's simple. I don't have to think about it a lot, but I don't want it to be so simple that my brain's just not working at all. For example, I started working on the Tulsa tee, and I was doing just stockinette for the front, but I didn't want to do all stockinette because, you know, after a while stockinette can get really boring, but it's easy enough that you don't have to think about it. So what I did is I did some moss stitch on the back, going down the back. So you definitely have to think about it a little bit to where it's not so mindless that you just check out, if that makes sense. But it's not too much to where you have to focus on 100%. So I like patterns like that where it's simple, but it gets your brain working enough to where you don't have to just blank out, but you're also not like have to be focused on it the whole time. But for others, it's the complete opposite. Some people like, you know, a lot of texture and cables and something where you have to really think. So I think just pick your style, something that is going to stimulate, that's the word I'm looking for. Stimulate your brain enough to where you're gonna be entertained and not frustrated. Have you ever lost your knitting mojo? And I will say yes. Flat out yes. While I was pregnant, almost the entire time I was pregnant, I could not pick up knitting for the life of me. In the beginning of my pregnancy, I had really bad morning sickness, and I was sick all the time. The smell of air, the smell of water would make me sick. So when it came to knitting, it made me so nauseous that even thinking about it made me want to, you know what. And so I didn't touch knitting for a while. It wasn't until, I want to say, towards the end of my pregnancy where I finally picked it back up again. And even then it was like here and there because, you know, you're so exhausted all the time. At least I was so exhausted during pregnancy. So that was the other thing, is knitting made me nauseous but also exhausted. But even outside of pregnancy, I've definitely lost like knitting and crochet mojo. Like I haven't picked up crochet. I just recently picked up crocheting again for the first time in, I want to say, a year maybe. I used to do crocheting all the time. You know, I started out as a crocheter and now I barely ever do it because you do something too much, you get sick of it after a while, you know. So I need to take a break from crocheting to miss it again. And I have definitely been missing it for sure. When it comes to knitting, for me personally, my brain works faster than my hands can go. So I will pick up a project and then get bored of it easily and want to move on to the next thing. And that was something that I struggled with a lot when I became a knitter for the first time. So it would get to the point to where I was so overwhelmed with the amount of cast-ons that I had, or just so like need to hurry up and finish this project so I can move on to the next, to the point where it would frustrate me because, like I said, my hands wouldn't move as fast as I wanted them to, obviously. So I would just get burnt out and lose that knitting mojo and just not touch it again for a while. I feel like it also depends on the season. Like right now, I'm still knitting a lot, obviously. Like I have quite a few projects going, and I am in a season where I want to knit a lot, but at the same time, it's starting to get really nice out, and like I'm looking outside right now and there's not a cloud in sight. So I want to keep knitting all the time, but at the same time, I don't, if that makes sense. I really want to like just be outside, go on adventures. Another thing I've really been craving a lot is reading. When I was pregnant, because I couldn't knit and I didn't have the energy to knit, I did a lot of reading and listened to audiobooks and stuff. So I've been missing books because I've been spending so much time with knitting since, you know, having my daughter. But now I'm like kind of wanting to put knitting on pause and get back into reading again. So yeah, that's a long way to say yes, I do. I do experience losing my knitting mojo. Is that how you say it, right? I do lose knitting mojo, yes. Now, something you can do to kind of help with that when you lose your creative flow, or you just, you know, you're working on a project and you just got to put it down, or whatever, you know, you lose your knitting mojo or crochet mojo, or just your mojo for whatever it is you do in general. You could always put it down. It is okay to put it down. You don't have to keep pushing through. You can definitely put it down and just take a breather from it for as long as you need to. It is okay to take breaks from whatever it is you're working on, from your main hobby, your main passion. Knitting is definitely my passion, but sometimes I need breaks from it, you know? And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to power through on anything just to hurry up and get it done or whatever, because that's a good way to get burnt out quickly, and you kind of build resentment towards what it is that you're working on when you try to power through. So at least that's been my experience. So it's good to take breaks, and it's okay to try different things. From, like, if you're a knitter, you can try crocheting. If you're a crocheter, you can try knitting. If you don't want to do that, you can try different things, like maybe pick up reading for a while, or painting, drawing. That's what I used to really be into, is drawing. And you can try other fiber arts. If you're super passionate about yarn like I am, you could pick up spinning or yarn dyeing. Yarn dyeing is a lot of fun. I have dyed some yarn. It is a lot of fun. And it's so rewarding to have a yarn that you made the color for it yourself. That is, and then to work with it, that could definitely bring your mojo back. Just even spinning yarn, or you can do both, spin and then dye it. That would be the ultimate reward, is to just get some raw wool that hasn't been dyed yet, or whatever, bleached wool that hasn't been dyed, and yeah, and then just pick the color that is you make your yarn your color, you know what I mean, and then spin it up yourself and make something with it. That could be a huge inspiration for you, you know. I'm inspiring myself right now just thinking about it. That sounds like a lot of fun. But yeah, or even if you just need to take a break and not have to work on anything at all, that is also okay. You know, just take a break from everything and just touch grass, as they say. One thing, excuse you are wrapping your tail around the yarn. One thing I've really been into is gardening. So sometimes when I just need to take a break from my knitting, I can go outside and sit in my garden, and it's be amongst my vegetables and my flowers and stuff, and that is very therapeutic. What is your greatest knitting accomplishment? That's a good question. I haven't been a knitter very long, but I would have to say I have two, I guess, because I've knitted a few things. I've knitted a couple sweaters that weren't for me, and some socks, and a couple hats and stuff, and a blanket. But I think my greatest one is, let's see. I have two, honestly. The Corn cardigan and the Farnham tee. So those are my most recent FOs. They're my greatest accomplishments because the Corn cardigan is my first cardigan. It's also my first time doing all over lace work. I've done lace work before, but I've never done all over lace work, if that makes sense. So I'm very proud of it. It's also my very first test knit. I've talked about it before in my other podcast, so about how passionate I am about it. I feel like it's my greatest accomplishment because I learned so much from that pattern. And it was my very first like garment that I made for myself that was fully completed and fully able to be worn. Same with the Farnham tee. It's the same thing. My first time doing German short rows and doing drop shoulder and stripes and stuff. I've done stripes before, but with crochet. I've never done stripes with knitting before. Have I? Yeah, I don't think I've ever done knitting with stripes before. That was my first time. But yeah, so those two are my most prized possessions as far as knitting at the moment, especially the Farnham tee, because out of everything I've knit, I feel like it's the most elegant looking. It's very clean. I learned a lot from that. I'm now working on the Mélange sweater. It's my very first Petite Knit pattern, and it's also drop shoulder. So I feel like the Farnham tee, as I say, walked so this could run, you know, like I learned how to do that German short row shaping from that sweater, and it was nice because you can see the like the mistakes I made on the top of the shoulder, which is totally fine because it's my first time. But now I know how to combat that and avoid doing that with this one, so it will turn out even better than the Farnham tee, you know. Those are my greatest knitting accomplishments. So the next question, the final question is, have you started out as a certain knitting style and then changed? I don't know. I'm so new to knitting that I don't know. I have always been really into like a clean, soft kind of, no, I think the answer is no, it hasn't changed. I still am very into the same things that I was in when I first got into knitting. The things that inspired me to start knitting in the first place was the way knitting can look. Since I started as a crocheter, seeing knitting has a different kind of finish to it, I guess. Clean lines. It just looks more finished, I guess. But I've always been into calmer colors, calmer patterns. So that's kind of the style that I was into when I got into knitting. And I'd say I'm still very much into that look, but it may change later down the road. You know, I'm still trying to figure it out. I've only made myself 2 garments so far, you know, so I think it's still very much the same. I'm still very much inspired by the same things that I was a couple years ago. But I guess in a way I have figured out what my style is a little bit more. Like I know that I love sweaters more than anything, more than like shawls and knitting scarves and hats and stuff. I would say sweaters first, and then cardigans would be like a close runner-up when it comes to like the things I like to wear. I know it's very vague, sweaters and cardigans, but yeah, I don't know. That question I feel like is very hard for me to answer because the short version is no, my style has not changed. That was a very complicated way of explaining my answer to no, my style has not changed. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna put her down for a nap because she's really, really exhausted now. So thanks for hanging out with me for this short video and just getting to know my style a little bit more, I guess. I hope you have a great day, a great rest of your day, a great evening, whatever time it is that you're watching this. And I will see you next week for my next video. Bye.